People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. What if I told you that the most charismatic people in the world don't try to be likable at all? In fact, they do something that seems completely counterintuitive, and it makes them absolutely magnetic. Carl Jung discovered a psychological principle that explains why some people can walk into any room and instantly command attention, respect, and genuine connection, while others try desperately to be liked and end up being ignored. Think about the most charismatic person you know. Are they constantly trying to please everyone? Or do they have something else? A quality that draws people in without any effort? By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what that quality is. Let me tell you about two people, Emma and David. Emma was always the people pleaser. She'd agree with everyone, laugh at jokes that weren't funny, and never express opinions that might cause conflict. David, on the other hand, was unapologetically himself. Sometimes awkward, sometimes disagreeable, but somehow people were magnetically drawn to him. Here's the paradox Jung identified. The more you try to be liked, the less likable you become. The more you hide your authentic self to avoid rejection, the more forgettable you become. It's not because people are cruel, it's because of how the human psyche operates. Jung called it shadow integration, the process of accepting and owning all parts of yourself, including the ones you think are unacceptable. Most people spend their lives hiding their flaws, quirks, and imperfections. But charismatic people? They've learned to embrace them. When you present yourself as perfect, polished, and agreeable, you trigger what Jung called unconscious suspicion. People sense something is missing. They feel like they're talking to a mask, not a person. The human psyche is designed to detect authenticity and reject what feels false. True charisma isn't about being charming or smooth talking. It's about authentic presence, being completely comfortable with who you are, including your shadows. When you stop hiding parts of yourself, you become three-dimensional, real, magnetic. Emma's breakthrough came during a work meeting. Instead of nodding along with a terrible idea, she spoke up. "I actually think this approach might backfire." She expected to be rejected. Instead, her colleagues leaned in. They respected her honesty. For the first time, they saw her as a real person with real opinions. Why does this work? Jung understood that people are unconsciously drawn to wholeness. When you integrate your shadow, your flaws, your unpopular opinions, your awkward moments, you become psychologically complete. This completeness is deeply attractive to others. Charismatic people aren't afraid to be vulnerable. They'll admit when they're wrong, share their struggles, acknowledge their limitations. This isn't weakness, it's psychological courage. And courage is magnetic because most people are terrified of being real. David's secret wasn't that he was perfect. It's that he was perfectly okay with being imperfect. He'd make jokes about his social awkwardness. He'd admit when he didn't know something. He'd express unpopular opinions, respectfully, but firmly. People found this refreshing in a world of pretense. When you stop performing and start being, your energy completely shifts. Instead of the anxious energy of trying to manage others' perceptions, you radiate the calm confidence of someone who knows themselves. This energy is palpable and deeply attractive. Shadow integration isn't about becoming rude or selfish. It's about becoming honest. It's about saying, "I don't know," when you don't know. It's about having boundaries. It's about expressing your real thoughts instead of what you think people want to hear. Here's what's counterintuitive. When you become okay with being disliked by some people, you become genuinely liked by others. When you stop trying to be everyone's cup of tea, you become someone's perfect blend. Authentic people polarize. and that's their power. Start small. Share a real opinion in your next conversation. Admit when you don't understand something. Set a boundary when someone asks too much of you. Notice how people respond to your authenticity versus your performance. Jung understood that authenticity affects your nervous system. When you're performing, you're in a state of hypervigilance, constantly monitoring reactions, adjusting your behavior. When you're authentic, you're relaxed. This relaxation is contagious and makes others feel safe around you. 6 months later, Emma was leading projects and being invited to social events she'd never been included in before. Not because she became perfect, but because she became real. Her colleagues started seeking her honest feedback because they knew she'd tell them the truth. Society sells us the myth that charisma is about being smooth, charming, and universally appealing. Jung knew better. Real charisma is about being so comfortable with yourself that others feel permission to be comfortable too. It's about psychological wholeness, not performance. When you accept all parts of yourself, you give others unconscious permission to do the same. Your authenticity becomes a mirror that reflects back their own possibility for wholeness. This is why authentic people become magnets. They represent what others desperately want to achieve. The biggest obstacle to authenticity is fear of rejection. But Jung showed us that trying to avoid rejection through performance guarantees something worse: invisibility. Better to be disliked for who you are than liked for who you're pretending to be. Practice acknowledging your shadows in low-stakes situations. I'm actually terrible with directions. I have no idea what you're talking about. I disagree with that. Notice how honesty creates connection rather than distance. David once said, "I stopped trying to be interesting and started being interested in being myself. That's when people became interested in me." The shift from external performance to internal authenticity changes everything about how others perceive you. True charisma isn't a technique you learn. It's a way of being you uncover. When you stop hiding from yourself, you stop being hidden from others. When you embrace your wholeness, you become irresistible to people who are ready for real connection.
You have a choice right now. Continue performing for approval and remain forgettable, or start integrating your shadows and become magnetic. The path to authentic charisma begins with accepting the parts of yourself you've been hiding. What's one part of yourself you've been hiding because you think it's not acceptable? Share in the comments. Your honesty might give someone else permission to embrace their own authenticity. Jung believed that the goal of life is not to be liked by everyone, but to be genuinely yourself. When you achieve that integration, you don't need tricks to make people like you. Your authentic presence becomes the most powerful force of attraction in any room.